Yo, what is good, y'all? It's your boy Brody. Thank y'all and welcome to the first true installment of what I like to call Broadcast Wrestling. Um, is a show that I've been kind of teasing for a while. Been doing little things, doing some interviews, doing some stuff on the Twitter. But this is the first time that I'm like, yo, let me start something week to week, right? And this is going to be a podcast that I think is going to be different than any other wrestling podcast out there, because this is me allowing y'all to go alongside me as I continue to go on this so-called wrestling journey, which restarted again during the pandemic. So give some background on myself as a fan. Growing up, I was a diehard wrestling fan. I used to watch it all the time. I was like heavy into it. I had all the action figures, everything. And so, I got older. My interests changed, specifically girls. And I kind of fell out of wrestling. I check it out on TV from here and there. I check it out on YouTube, listen to different podcasts to keep up with it. But I kind of fallen out of love with it. You know what I'm saying? And so because of the pandemic, things started to change a little bit. So as everybody knew during the pandemic, there was nothing on TV. Basketball stopped. Baseball wasn't happening. Boxing, every sport stopped. And I'm not a big TV watcher like that. You know what I'm saying? I will watch sports, Food Network, and shows, but I like to binge watch shows. So for me to sit down and have to wait week to week to week for a show, it's hard for me. But wrestling kind of scratched that itch of, hey, I need something to watch. And so I chose wrestling, and I kind of got into it a little bit more, man. There was some things I was like, okay, this is all right. I can get into this. And that is kind of why I'm here today for this first installment and what I wanted to kind of speak on, which was a thing that has kept me glued in to wrestling over the last couple of years, about 3 years now, as I will explain. And that is the Bloodline, which is the biggest thing going in WWE right now. And when I say the Bloodline, I'm talking about Roman Reigns, the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, Paul Heyman, Solo Sikoa, and formerly Sami Zayn, who make up the Bloodline as a whole. And I guess when it was kind of at its best, at least in my opinion, at its best, that is kind of the formation of what that group was. And is, because I think there's still can be considered a variation of it now. And it has been quite the interesting ride with this storyline. And it's also been quite the case study for me as well in terms of the storyline. So let's kind of bring it to the beginning. Because my goal for this show and this podcast and what it is that I want it to be, I don't want this to be like any other wrestling podcast where I'm going and watching Raw or SmackDown or Dynamite in terms of AEW, Dynamite Collision every week and giving y'all just, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this is what I think about this, I give this 5 stars, I give this that. I don't want it to be that, because there's so many other shows that's like that, number one. And number two, honestly, I just don't have the time or the energy to watch every single thing every single week, because oftentimes a lot of stuff can get repetitive. It really, really can. As an adult, I'm looking at it like, yo, this is just a regular wrestling method that can be super repetitive, and I'm not going to give that to y'all. Everybody got an opinion about everything, but I'm going to give you my opinions on the things that either I liked a lot and really want to share this with the people who this podcast is geared for, which is more of a casual audience of people who may not necessarily watch everything, who may watch wrestling from time to time, but for the people who want to keep up with it, be involved with it, and if nothing else, say, you know what, if I want to watch wrestling, at least let me watch something that was so good that I need to go check it out, or so bad that it's like, what the fuck? Let me go listen to what this nigga Brody is talking about. So that is what this show is about. But back to the point of the Bloodline and why I've been so interested in it and why I think it's such an interesting case study in terms of wrestling is because of the depth of not only the group, but the different layers of all the people within the group. Because this is a story that has been going on for 3 years now, started in summer 2020. And within the last 3 years of this happening, of this storyline taking place, of this group being formed and manifested into what it is now, every person involved has showed different layers and different points, different personality traits, different things, to where each person was really established as a full range character, and not just, oh, this dude is just a big dude that beats people up, or oh, this is the dude that does flips. Like, no, there's real character driven stories involved within this. And for me personally, like, I haven't even looked at this story as like a traditional wrestling story, because most traditional wrestling stories are pretty cookie cutter. Like, hey, this person interfered in my match, and so I don't like him or her, or hey, I want to face this person because I need to go one-on-one with them to get my title shot. Like, it's cookie cutter. But the thing that I like about this storyline is that it's not as cookie cutter and the layers that go with it, which is why I compare it to television show. Like, I look at the Bloodline almost like I look at Power, or I look at Snowfall when that was coming on, or like The Sopranos, or Billions, or one of these shows where it's not necessarily about what is happening, but it's about the characters, and one, how they evolve, and two, the characteristics of each person, because they represent different things. So, to give a preface on the Bloodline, and it starts with the head of the table, the tribal chief, and it starts there with Roman Reigns, who is currently the WWE World Heavyweight Universal Global Champion, or whatever they're calling it. And he has been on like this unstoppable run over the last 3 years where he's just beating everybody. I mean, everybody's been put in front of him. He's beating them, whether it's one person or it's two people. He's beating them all. So then let's transition over to Jey Uso, the right-hand man, main event Jey Uso, who has been along this ride from the beginning, which I'll kind of explain the story and how things have progressed. But he has been along throughout the whole process of the Bloodline, which is his cousin. That's another key element to this story. This is a family. So we're talking about the Anoa'i family, which is a famous wrestling family, which also includes The Rock, but they're cousins. So you got Jey, who's one twin, who's been around through the beginning, since the inception of this concept. You got his twin brother Jey, who started out later on, but that plays into a lot of the story, and honestly, it plays into a lot of where I think the story is going to go based on what happened over at SummerSlam over the past weekend in which this show is being recorded. But you got his brother Jey, twin brother Jey. Well, you got Jey, then you got his twin brother Jimmy, Then you got the little brother, Solo, who is like the enforcer of the group. If Roman needs somebody to be taken out, I need proper English, sir. You call Solo. Solo is the dude that you call, but he's the youngest of the family. He's the little, I won't say the little homie, because he ain't presented like the little homie, but to them, in their eyes, that's kind of what he is in a lot of ways, although he is the enforcer. Then you have the wise man, Paul Heyman, who at one point managed Brock Lesnar, but Paul Heyman as a character is this evil, sort of maniacal kind of mouthpiece person who, although he may not be the person verbally calling the shots, he is like the motivator behind so many of the different things that's kind of taking place within not only this Bloodline, but within any character that he, or wrestler that he kind of deals with. He did it with Brock Lesnar for a very long time. He did it with CM Punk. And even just going back beyond that with some of the wrestlers that he was managing way back in the day. And then another character that will be mentioned throughout this at certain points is Sami Zayn, the honorary Uso, who has no relation to the family, but blends and ties in this story so much because he was such an intricate part of it. And I don't even think it was planned for him to be such an intricate part, but he became that organically because of how well done this story is. And so to put it all into perspective. So let's do a quick character sort of breakdown of each person, because I think that is very important. Roman Reigns, like I said before, is the tribal chief. He is the head of the table, and he is someone who is driven by being the very best, whether it's within the company of WWE or it's within his family. He is driven to be the best, and for him, being the best isn't, I've main evented this show and I've done this. No, the best for him is being the champion. And whatever, he's willing to stay the champion by any means necessary, which is very, very important throughout the story. So let's talk about Jay. Let's transition over to Jay, who has grown on me so much during this storyline. It's pretty amazing. Jay is about family. He is about protecting his family and keeping things close, but he has morals. He ain't out here trying to be the bad guy or nothing like that, but at the end of the day, he is centered along his family. That is what all of his character arc is about. It's about family for him. And he's proven that time and time again throughout this story, and that's why I think it's so brilliant. His character has been so brilliant. And he's turned the corner with me. Let's talk about Jimmy. Jimmy is one of those characters where he, in a lot of ways, like an antagonist of the family. So Jimmy wasn't there at the beginning, as I'll talk about. But Jimmy is the person that's putting in Jay's ear, like, yo, you should be the tribal chief. You know what I'm saying? Or like, we should trust this person in Sami Zayn, who's the outsider. In a lot of ways, he is the antagonist within the family here. And people want to keep bringing up Roman as that. No, Jimmy is the true antagonist of the bloodline, in my opinion, because he is putting messages in people's ear. You talking to Jay. Well, hey, Jay, I think you should be the tribal chief because, look at all you've been doing for Roman. You should be the tribal chief. Jimmy also, when it was time for Jay to have to, and I'll go into further detail, when it was time for him to have to establish what side he's on, Roman also said, well, hey, Jimmy, you were the person that said you didn't believe in your brother. So that's why he is a central kind of antagonist of many different areas within this family. So then you got Solo, who, like I mentioned before, he is the enforcer of the bloodline. So people get out of line. Solo's a person they called. Solo is typically the person that when somebody is trying to get at Roman, trying to get at Jimmy or Jay, during certain points, he the person that they call on. He's going to be the one to take that person out. He is like the shooter. He's the hitman. He's the shooter. So that is his role within this. He doesn't speak. He doesn't show very many emotions, but Solo ain't to be fucked with. Simple and plain. Solo ain't meant to be fucked with. Paul Heyman, the wise man, like I explained before, he is kind of the manager, but he is the kind of the mouth. I don't even want to necessarily say the mouthpiece, but he is kind of the maniacal figure with the puzzles, or with the pieces to this puzzle here. So Roman didn't truly establish himself within this bloodline thing until he got aligned himself with Paul Heyman. So to give background with that, Roman Reigns before the bloodline story was known as this good guy. And it wasn't like a good guy where people genuinely liked him as a good guy. It was more of he was a good guy because he was forced to be a good guy, to the point to where it was like, dog, we see through this. You know what I'm saying? Like, not like, oh, you a bad dude or nothing like that, but more of you're stale, like you're bland. Like it's almost like you're just being shoved down our throats, pause, without any real sort of proof that you are really worthy of the praise that it seems like the WWE company is giving you. And so at the start of the pandemic, April 2020, WrestleMania, Roman Reigns was the Universal Champion at the time. And he backed out of WrestleMania because he is a cancer survivor. He had leukemia. And he backed out due to health reasons. And so some time passed, and he was in a lot of ways forgotten about because, with COVID and everything, for someone who has leukemia, who was a cancer survivor in that way, you don't think like, okay, he gonna come out and really do a whole lot because, everybody's worried about the COVID and all this other stuff. And at the time, it felt like Vince McMahon was a COVID denier. He wasn't really even believing like as serious as it was. But at the same time, that was what was going on. So, of course, you got to protect Roman, man. He was established as a top star regardless of if people booed him or cheered him. He was established as the top guy within the company, right? So, as I take a swig of water here. That's a good H2O. Water boy reference, if y'all don't know. But, so, Roman comes back. And when Roman came back, he came back and he came back during a championship match between Bray Wyatt and I ain't gonna lie, I can't think of the other person's name off the top of my head right now. I'm having a brain fart. I apologize. But he came back in a championship match. And at that point, there was something different about the man, right? He came back and just had a vicious streak. The look was different. The vibe that he was giving off was just different. Like, it wasn't the same happy-go-lucky Roman before. There was a little bit of edge to him. So he comes back, and his first night back on SmackDown, everybody's wanting to know what's going on with Roman. Why was Roman out here doing what he did? Like, what's going on here, champ? And it showed that reveal of Paul Heyman, who, like I said before, is historically known as the maniacal sort of genius, and that if anybody that aligns with this man is going to be a fucking asshole. Like, it's no way around it, whether he's a Brock Lesnar where he's just beating the shit out of you type asshole, or if he's CM Punk where he's going to verbally obliterate you and then whoop your ass type of asshole. Like, that is the type of energy that Paul Heyman has always brought historically. And so to see Roman align himself with him, it felt different. Like, it was one of those things where it's like, what? Like, this is what you're doing? Oh, okay. All right. And so over the coming weeks, over the span of time, it was shown that, okay, this is a different type of Roman that we're starting to see. We're seeing a Roman with a viciousness to the point to where he ended up picking his spots in his matches. He wasn't just coming out and wrestling for 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, the match would be about over. Roman gonna show up. He gonna do his thing and he gonna leave. And it was shown true in his championship match where he was kind of supposed to be in it. He showed up at the end within this triple threat. And he won the belt. He won the Universal Championship. And it was cool because, like I said, Roman was showing a different energy. He was showing a different type of vibe. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no longer... He was just a different man. He was a changed man, not only in just his on the mic skills and promos, but just his mannerisms, what he was doing mannerisms, what he was doing in the ring, just all that, right? And so then let's talk about Jey Uso. So Roman does his thing, he wins his championship, and now it's time to establish a number one contender. So at the time, Jimmy was out, he got hurt, tore his knee up, so he was out, wasn't coming back. Well, let's give Jey something to do. Let's have Jey show what he can do on his own, right? So Jey wins a title shot. He wants a series. I can't remember if it was a series of matches or, if he just won a 5-way battle royal type thing or whatever. But Jey wins a shot at the title. Roman Reigns is a champion. That's his cousin. And now it's like, okay, Jey is really going to be a threat for Roman here. Like, all right, Jey's established himself. He's beating people. He's showing, like, yo, on my own, I can do my thing. Like, I don't need my brother for everything. I can hold my own. So that's when him and Roman have their first match. They have back and forth. Roman is letting him know, like, look, I'm doing this. I'm got this title because I'm providing for the family. Like, this isn't about me. This is about our family. Like, I am the true head of the table here. Like, I'm the man. Everybody knows it in this family, and everybody is eating because of me being the head of this family. And so they had their first match, and Jey is getting obliterated, and his brother Jimmy comes down, throws in the towel. He's like, look, I can't let my twin brother go out like this, man. I have to step in as a brother because that is family. And that is going to be a recurring theme throughout this entire story, is how it's a family. This is a family affair. This is a family thing. And so with that, they have that first match. Then Jimmy, he plays a role in the second one and trying to play some mind games with Roman. And then they have their second match, Hell in a Cell I Quit match, which Hell in a Cell is supposed to be like the steel cage on crack, on steroids. Like, it's supposed to be something crazy stupid. And to add the I Quit stipulation, it takes it up another level. It takes it up another notch. You feel me? And so it was powerful because Roman showed another viciousness. It was almost like, yo, bro, I don't care that you my cousin. I'm going to fuck you up because I am protecting this not only me having this championship, but me showing you I am at the top of the food chain in this family here, bro. And I don't care that you are my cousin. I don't care that we grew up together, that we close. I'm going to let you know. I'm not fucking around here, bro. I'm not. And it turned into a thing to where, and this was a powerful sort of thing at the time, was how Roman was choking out Jay. Jimmy ran out, was like, man, nah, get off of him, man. We blood. Like, we family, man. Like, you like our brother, bro. Like, what are you doing? And because he knew Jay wasn't going to say he quit. He knew Jay wasn't going to quit. And so that's when Roman got off him, was like, all right, man, it's all right, okay, and got emotional, started crying, showing emotional range. Just for him to put Jimmy in the chokehold, knowing that Jimmy got a hurt leg. And that's what made Jay say he quit. So the whole time, as this whole thing is kind of going on in the story and the in-between of these matches, is Roman is telling Jay, you're going to fall in line. By hell and high water, you are going to fall in line. And so this match right here was kind of the first establishment of Jay saying, you know what, I will fall in line. Because at that point after the match, that's when Roman was crowned as the tribal chief. His elders, as they called them, they showed up. They put the necklace on him. I don't want to butcher the name, so that's why I'm not going to say it. The flower necklace joint, I'm not going to butcher it. But just the symbolism of it is saying that Roman's a tribal chief. But after that, you start to see Roman start to compete against other people. He's going out having matches against Edge, against all these other foes. And the one constant there is Jay. Because Jay he's falling in line. When Roman is in trouble, Jay's out there to save the day. When they have a championship match, Jay is out there to save the day. And Roman's about to lose, Jay is out there to save the day. But it's still that establishment of family, and it's still that establishment of Jay falling in line, despite the fact that Roman at times is putting the beat down on him because he's hesitant. You know what I'm saying? He's hesitant. He's like, man, this dude just whooped my ass, man. I don't know how loyal I can be to this dude. But he's still falling in line. Roman is still doing things to make sure that he falls in line. And over time, Jay is really, really actually falling in line. And so it becomes a thing as things start to go as, well, hold on. Roman, you the champ, but Jay is the one that's saving you every single time. And the manipulator that is established that Roman Reigns is, he brings back his brother. Because now his brother's healed up from his injuries. He's like, look, man, it's y'all time now. I'm handling here with the World Championship or the Universal. And it's y'all time now to be the tag champs, man. Y'all go out there, y'all do your thing. You and your brother, y'all are unstoppable. And once y'all get them tag champs, we as a collective, as the Bloodline, will be unstoppable. And that's what the Usos did. They went out there and Roman kind of messed that up a little bit, no cap, but they became tag team champs. And once they became the tag team champs, that's where you start to see little cracks in between different things, right? You start to see Jimmy say the same thing. Like, bro, every time Roman has a championship match, we are there to save them. Even though Roman is still dominant on paper and just in the way that he moves and the way that he's taking care of things, he is still dominant. He is the champ. But the Usos always play a factor within it. So Jimmy, even then, is like, yo, dude, like, what are we doing? Like, why are we falling in line, playing second fiddle to this man when we the reason that he's still champ most of the time, right? And it's, once again, it's showing the layers. Roman is the head of the table, the tribal chief. He is the person in charge. He is Franklin Saint in the Snowfall story here, because at every turn, when people start to turn and act like they don't want to fall in line, he shows his power by getting at them. Whether it's through getting at them, and in this case, because of wrestling and the nature of it, he's getting at them physically. So he beat up Jay with a chair. You know what I'm saying? He was shoving them, Jay and Jimmy around, the Usos around. Like, he was establishing himself through fear as the head of the table. But Jimmy is still kind of that antagonist here. Like, yo, Jay, we doing this. Like, what are we doing? Like, you just going to take the verbal abuse from this man? You just going to take him talking to us any type of way? But for somehow, some way, they both continue to fall in line. Why? Because Roman knew the soft spot for Jay, and that was family. Jay is the family man. So when Jay kind of is realizing what's going on here, Roman brings up the family. Why? Because Jay is about family. See, and these are all layers to these characters that people don't really even understand. And this is why I compared it to like a Snowfall or Power or Billions or something, because there's layers to these people. It's not just, well, this dude is winning all these matches. No. Each promo, each week is showing layers, and layers have been started to be established here with each of these characters. So we've gotten to that point. Roman now has an issue with Paul Heyman, because now Paul Heyman's established as a character, but he's really more so the guy for Roman. He's like he's the wise man, because Roman goes to him for guidance. But Brock Lesnar shows up. Whose guy is that also? Paul Heyman. So now the loyalty, because at every turn it seems as if someone within this bloodline family, their loyalty is tested. Something comes up, whether it's within themselves or an outside force. It's about the loyalty being tested. So Brock Lesnar comes back, and he's kind of like, well, Paul, you knew I was coming back. I'm your boy. You knew. Doesn't say nothing to Roman. And Roman like, dog, that's your man. That's your boy. And you not going, you're not going to establish what this is. And so with all that, they fight one time. Roman wins, thanks to the Usos again, as is a recurrent theme throughout this story, which is why it's fun. It's really funny to me, and it's an interesting case study, because my fiance, every time, and because this is something that she's been into as well, every time Roman goes out there for a championship match, she always says it. She's like, well, the Usos always come out and help which is like the funniest thing in the world. But it's true. That's kind of the way things played out. But Brock comes back. They had their match. Him and Roman had their match. Roman wins. And then Brock goes out and wins the other world champion, the WWE Championship. So now we get to this place where Paul Heyman gets fired, kicked out the bloodline. And now it's about Roman and Brock. One, Roman and Brock. And two, where's the loyalty of the wise man? Like, where's his loyalty at within this story? So we get to WrestleMania, and that loyalty was proven. The wise man showed up big for Roman and helped him unify the WWE and the Universal Championship. So at that point, that is like the full establishment of all these characters, because also, and this is something that's going to come out later, the loyalty has been established. The Usos are still helping him. And at this point, the Usos aren't really questioning Roman like that. They like, you know what, this family, he's leading us in the right place. He got us to the point where we can win these tag championships. We are good. So with that, after that, let's talk about after that. So once Roman unifies his championships, he looking at the Usos like, hey, I proved myself as the head of the table and the best in a singles range. But now it's time for y'all to do that as a tag team. So y'all need to go out. They were SmackDown tag team champions before. We need to go out and unify these Raw tag team championships so we can really assert our dominance as the Bloodline. We are the Bloodline. We are the top of the food chain. Roman considers himself the head of the table, so he doesn't expect any less of the people around him. Another layer to the character here, people. From then, the Usos go out and they do that. They do just that. You know, there was some time in between. There was some little tricks in between. You know, Roman had some issues. There was still a little tug of war. But that is what happened. Because that is kind of the way things are playing out. These three are being established as the best three wrestlers in the company. The Usos as a tag team. Roman as the world champion. Because, once again, the Bloodline is supposed to be the best. That's the whole point of this. They are the top of the food chain. Just like Franklin Saint and his family. They were the top of the food chain in the drug game. Ghost and Power. Top of the chain in the drug game in New York. Like, these characters and these comparable characters, and the reason I keep bringing them up is because the story always revolved around them staying at the top of the food chain. And that is what the Bloodline story revolves around. Them being at the top of the food chain. As a family. Same sort of thing with Snowfall and Power. But I'll keep going with the story here. So after that, that's when you start to see Sami Zayn. So Sami Zayn is a complete outsider. He has no blood relation to anybody else in the Bloodline. He is someone who initially just went to the Bloodline for protection. He just wanted some help. What ends up happening is they're all reluctant to Sami. They are extremely reluctant, and they're going to keep being reluctant, especially Jay. Jay is the most reluctant to Sami. Sami continues to show and prove his loyalty by going out there and helping the Usos win matches. Taking bullets for Roman as he was feuding with Drew McIntyre. There was a SmackDown episode where Drew is out here and he's beating down Roman. And he's going for his Claymore kick, which is a running kick or whatever. And Sami pushes Roman out the way. What does he do? He takes the kick for him, proving his loyalty. Because in this family, you got to be loyal to one man and one man only, and that is Roman Reigns. Because at any point, Roman Reigns has shown, hey, I'll beat the shit out of one of my cousins, bro. I'll beat the shit out of one of my cousins if they ain't going to be loyal, if they not going to fall in line. But Sami continues to be loyal and fall in line, despite the reluctancy of Jay. Jimmy is accepting of him. He's like, cool, man. He an honorary Uso, as they called him. And that's how that story with Sami is starting to build. But within this time, but also within this issue, this feud with Drew McIntyre, you see the emergence of Solo, who was sent by the elders because they saw what was going on with the Bloodline. There's some dysfunction here because of Sami. People aren't getting along. It seems as if there's always this sort of back and forth between, Jay and Roman or Jimmy and Roman. There's always this back and forth. So the elders decide, hey, we're going to send Solo. We're going to send a real enforcer here to make sure that everybody stays in line, and the elders, they're even over the head of Roman. So Roman didn't go and call Solo to get here. No. The people, the past tribal chiefs, if you will, said, nah, we gonna do it. So, with Solo coming into the picture, it now adds another element to the Bloodline story because now Solo is the enforcer. When people need to be taken out, people get out of line, Solo's the person that gets called. He's the person that's beating them down, giving them that Samoan spike, as it's called. And this in the meantime is happening while Sammy is trying to establish himself, prove his loyalty, because he wants to be a part of the Bloodline. He sees what the Bloodline is doing, and he want to be a part, because why would you not? You see the best, you want to be a part of the best. And so through all this discourse, all these issues, all this reluctancy to really truly embrace Sami Zayn as a member of the Bloodline, it gets to points where Sami is going to have to establish himself and establish his loyalty by beating up his best friend, which is Kevin Owens. It was shown when Kevin Owens was going after the championship against Roman, but then in War Games it was also shown again because Sami put that final sort of nail in the coffin there in terms of beating up Kevin Owens in that match and winning that match. But Sami proved his loyalty while everybody else is winning. You know, Roman got the world championships, the Usos got the tag championships, and they out here killing it, you know? And so finally it gets to the point to where there's still questions about Sami, because although Sami has proven his loyalty in action, every now and again he'll slip up and say something, or every now and again somebody will slip up and say something, and he'll kind of play that in between. He'll play that middle. And so after all that is said and done, Jay finally embraces Sami, which is the thing that makes everything come whole. The Bloodline is in a good place. Everybody's getting along. Everybody's on the same page. It's Sami, and Jay finally embraces Sami. He does what he got to do and embraces that man. Very beautiful moment. Touching. I shed a thug tear for that. But now that we've gotten to that place, everything seems good with the Bloodline. Everything seems hunky-dory. And Kevin Owens comes back, and he's like, yo, Sami, like, you taking this? Like, you my boy and everything, but I don't know what you doing here, bruh. And if y'all hear thundering outside, it's currently storming like a mug. So I apologize if y'all do hear some storming. And that's what's going on with the Blood right now. There's a lot of storms. But so it gets to the place to where Roman is like, look, if you're going to be loyal to us, you are going to have to go that extra mile and beating up your friend. And like really beating him to the point to where you want to take this nigga out. And Sami gets to the point, and this happened at the Royal Rumble, where everybody had beat up Kevin Owens. They had tied him to the ropes, and he had been beaten with a chair, everybody. And Roman was like, no. Sami, you want to be a part of the Bloodline? You need to do it. This is your time to do it. Mind you, Jay had just vouched for him. Roman had already been reluctant. Jimmy had embraced him. Solo had embraced him. Paul Heyman, the wise man, had embraced him. But Jay was that final person to truly embrace him and say, you got it. And this was his ultimate time to prove his loyalty to Roman. What does he do? He hits Roman in the back with a chair. Oh, my God. The place goes crazy. The crowd goes wild because everybody's like, man, fuck Roman Reigns, man. He an asshole, bro. But it was that time where it was almost like Roman's power and dominance and roost of everything had finally come full circle. And someone finally got that get back on him because Jay wasn't doing it. Jimmy wasn't doing it. Solo wasn't doing it. So Sami had to be the one to do it. But once again, Sami is not in the family. He's not a part of the family. He ain't blood. So Jimmy, of course, goes in and attacks him. Solo, of course, goes in and attacks him. But Jay put his neck on the line for this man. And he was reluctant to the point to where he disappeared. And so now we looking at Jimmy and Solo and Roman all coming together in one piece, in one harmony. And Sami got to go. He got to go against Roman. Jay and is talking to Sami, and Sami's like, dude, you don't have to take this because Jay is the likable one out of everybody. Because Jay, his intentions are good. His intentions are pure. Unlike Roman, whose intentions are purely selfish. Solo follows the orders of Roman, and Jimmy, he kind of follows the orders of Roman, but he's a little reluctant, but he ain't gonna go all the way against his family because his family done put him in a position to be great. And so finally, the time comes where Sammy goes against Roman, and Jay chooses family, man, because his brother told him to choose family. His cousin obviously told him to choose family. Well, both his brothers, even though Solo don't speak. Like I said, Solo is a mute, man. But everybody convinced him, and he made the ultimate decision. Hey, I need to rock with my family. I need to ride with my family here. And he helped Roman win. He turned on Sammy. That was a touching thing, too, man. Shed another thug tear because they fit well together. They was a perfect combo together. But it got to the point to where that led to even more things to happen. And at WrestleMania this past year, we saw the Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who aligned back with each other after all these issues with the Bloodline. Sami went and begged his man, like, yo, please, man, you my best friend. I'm sorry, I was in a bad place. We gonna have to connect and win these championships and take them off the Usos, who at this point are the longest reigning tag team champions of all time. So they done went through them all. They done beat everybody, man. RK Bro, the Street Profits, the Alpha Academy, anybody else that was a tag team on that roster, they beat them during that time. You feel me? And so the Usos went to WrestleMania and they lost. They lost the tag team championships. But during this time, Roman was going up against Cody Rhodes, who was the fan favorite, the returning babyface American Nightmare hero. Whoa! And against all odds, Roman went and pulled it out, even though Solo had something to do with it. As always, Solo replaced the Usos. Now Solo that got something to do with everything, man. But Solo went out there and helped him, but he still won. And so after the fact, and we kind of going into towards the end and kind of current state of the Bloodline right now, after that, Roman is getting on them like, yo, y'all lost. Y'all got to go back and earn it because we can't be at the top of the food chain if y'all don't have the gold. If y'all don't have the belt or the silver, because they ain't really gold belts. But if y'all ain't got the championships, we can't be at the top of the food chain. And so it has led to the point to where we have been the last few months where the Bloodline has been split. So all the abuse, the verbal abuse, the mental abuse that Roman has put on by his force and by just the pure stature of the fact that he's the longest reigning champion of the last 30, 40 years. Jimmy finally decides to turn on Roman. He's like, look, man, I was falling in line long enough, but you only going to treat me a certain type of way for so long, man. And so it took place. Jimmy kicked him, turned on him. And Jay had to make another decision because once again, Jay is family oriented. He don't want to split things up. He want everybody to be in peace and harmony. And so it became a question of, is Jay going to be loyal to his brother, his twin, or is he going to be loyal to the Bloodline as a whole? And so what ends up happening is Jay decides, you know what, he's going to be loyal to his brother, and he going to team up with his brother, and he going to go up against Roman and Solo, who is the little brother, who's actually the Usos, the little brother. And so it turned into the tribal warfare, which was a tag team match between the two. And then after that, Solo and Roman took out Jimmy. They like, man, we gonna have this issue with you. We not gonna play these games. We gonna take you out. But within that the tribal warfare, Jey Uso became the first person in 4 years to pin Roman Reigns, which is nuts. To pin him, that's a 6 stat, but that's what happened. He pinned him. And so Jay at that point became the challenger for the championship. And this is where we are at the current state of the Bloodline. And that is, he challenged for the championship. He established himself and said, yo, I'm main event Jey Uso. This is after Jimmy was telling him, like, dude, you've been the man that been saving things from day one. You should be the head of the table. You should be the tribal chief. They took out Jimmy. Jay said, nah, you're not going to do that to my brother. Roman and him had a tribal combat match at SummerSlam this past weekend. Jay, and I went to a SmackDown show in Raleigh about 2-3 weeks ago now. Jay was the most popular dude there, and it's funny because like I said, I watch wrestling with my fiance from time to time, and I was convinced before we went there that she was gonna buy a Bianca Belair shirt because that's somebody she talked about a lot, and that was the person she was like, "Oh, I want to see Bianca," but she ended up getting a We the One shirt because of Jay Uso. She was like, "Nah, I like Jay. That's gonna be the person that I want a shirt," and she ended up getting a We the One shirt, which is why I say this is such an interesting case study. But as of last Sunday at the recording of this podcast, whatever you want to call it, I don't even know how I'm going to call it a podcast because this isn't a show where I'm going over everything every week. And like I said, I want to separate myself. I want to be different from all these other shows, man. But Roman and Jay had their match. And guess who came back and turned on his brother? Jimmy came back and turned on Jay Uso. So now, this leads me to A, what happens next with the Bloodline, and B, the layers and the different characteristics of these characters and why I feel this whole story arc, the whole Bloodline angle, as it's called, is deeper than wrestling. It's not just a wrestling story. This is television. This is cinema. This is a movie. And there's a video that I'm going to link probably in the description of this video of the complete history of the Bloodline from start to beginning so you can see everything play out and just how the story has progressed and how you can see these patterns of these things that I'm talking about to really establish the characters as they are as people and not just as people who wrestle. You feel me? So where I see the Bloodline going from here. First off, I do not think that Roman and Solo are going to be attached to this Jimmy and Jay situation here. I think Roman at this point is kind of going to separate himself. First, I think he's going to take time off. That's number one. But he's also going to kind of separate himself because within that match on Sunday, Roman accidentally put hands on Solo. And that's going to be interesting. Because for a very long time, I thought Solo was going to be the person to beat Roman Reigns for that belt. And become the new head of the table. Tribal chief, you feel me? But I don't think Roman's going to be involved with it. I don't think Jimmy turned on Jay because of Roman. I think Jimmy turned on Jay because Jimmy is looking at what Jay has been doing. It's just kind of a hater, man. And this was crazy because there was a promo when Jay was deciding that he was going to align with his brother, where Jay had said all these things about Jimmy, like, yo, you the older brother, you the person that was always getting the looks in school, you was the better athlete in school, you was a prom king, you was the man of the year in high school, like, you was all these things. But I've established myself as main event Jay Uso, as I am the man, you feel me? And Jimmy, to me, turned his back on Jay because he like, well, you know what, you're right. I am supposed to be better than you. I am the older brother. Although we twins, I came out before you. And there's something to be said about that. And that's what I think this whole thing with Jay and Jimmy is going to be. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with Roman. I don't think it's going to be like a bloodline thing. It's going to literally be, yo, you said all that stuff about me and you're right. We've been playing second fiddle to Roman. We've all been playing the backseat to him. And you've been the one to get all these opportunities, all these chances. Well, what about me? You said I'm supposed to be better than you. I'm going to show you that I'm better than you. And I think that's where that story leads. And I'm thinking that it's going to lead to a match at WrestleMania. And I hope it does. I hope it leads to an epic match at WrestleMania. I don't think this is a story that you should just... I think that I don't think this is a story that you should waste on a secondary pay-per-view. I just don't. Payback and all that, that's cool, but it needs to be on one of the main pay-per-views. So we talking WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Money in the Bank, Survivor Series, if you still consider it that as a longtime wrestling fan. But I think the other part of the story from Saturday that happened in terms of Roman putting hands on Solo is that I think Solo is going to start getting a Jey Uso treatment where Roman is going to start treating him a certain type of way and Solo is going to start looking like, well, dang, maybe I should be the head of the table. I'm the enforcer here. I'm the person that's helping you out now at this point, now that my brothers, the Usos, ain't helping you. Why not me be the head of the table? Why not me be the tribal chief? And you're going to start to see that series unwind and unravel. I don't think Solo is going to beat Roman. I think Cody Rhodes is the clear-cut person at this point that's going to beat Roman. And I think that's going to happen at WrestleMania, at which point Roman no longer has his family to help him in these type of matches. It's just going to be him and the wise man. And we're going to see how Roman fares when it's just him and the wise man. And so, with all that being said, and that's just my predictions on what I think this is going to happen next with the Bloodline story. The reason why I'm so adamant and about these characters and the depth that they have, because even after that, where does Roman go after that? In all these stories, especially Snowfall, which I think is the most somewhat comparable to this, to the Bloodline story. I think Power, I look at Roman as Ghost, but Ghost got killed. You can't kill Roman off in this type of a story. You know, it is professional wrestling at the end of the day, so you can't just kill him off. But I do think that there's a little bit of elements to Franklin Saint in terms of the Roman character and the Roman story. So the thing about Franklin Saint was, when Franklin Saint was established as a character in that first season, he was established as a good guy. He didn't want to cause trouble. Yes, he was selling, he started out selling some weed with some little success with that, and he moved up to coke. But he never was in the business of, hey, I want to step on people's toes. I want to be this vicious sort of boss type person. That was never his intention. But once he got the success that he wanted, that he always wanted through money, he became that. And that's similar to what Roman became. Roman was successful when people liked him, but it wasn't the same. So he decided, it's time for me to switch up who I am. And it just so happened that Jey Uso was the first obstacle that he had to cross in order for him to show that viciousness and show that side. And with Franklin, the first time Franklin had to show his ruthlessness was when he killed his friend. Yeah, and the name escapes me right now who the friend was. It's played by the guy who plays Lulu and Raising Kanan. Malcolm Mace is his name in real life. Great actor, by the way. But still, Franklin, when he killed his homeboy, at that point it was established, oh no, Franklin, he don't care. He's about making his money. He's about making his money, and he will do anything to prevent something costing him from making his money. Roman, same situation with his championship. He won the belt, and he fucking dismantled Jey to the point to where Jay's brother had to come in. Jimmy had to come in and put things, bring peace, and say, well, no, stop. You can't take it that far with him because he's still your blood. You know what I'm saying? In the context of professional wrestling. And now that we see the progression, as you see the progression of Franklin Saint, you see how he becomes more vicious and more ruthless as he gets more power and more success, and accolades start rolling in as he becomes the biggest drug dealer in fucking LA. You start to see the attitude shift even more. He becomes more manipulative. He manipulates Melanie, the girl next door that he loved. I mean, she became a crackhead, but he manipulated her. He manipulated Uncle Jerome, Aunt Louie, his mother, his father. He manipulated these people to understand. Leon, it's about family. I am doing this for the family because I'm buying y'all all this nice shit. I bought you this shelter. I put Uncle Jerome and Aunt Louie in the game. I made them something. Roman, same sort of situation here. I'm the man. I'm the champion here. I'm at the top of this WWE food chain. I'm going to get y'all the opportunity to get a tag team championship. I'm going to do that. And as I step up more and more, y'all are going to step up with me more and more as long as y'all fall in line, which is a theme throughout both shows, falling in line. Because as things start to happen, things start to take place, more characters start to go in and out. You got Stacy in terms of Snowfall, Manboy in terms of Snowfall. These pieces started to kind of come in. And even Teddy as well, another piece that started to come in. And as things happened over time in Snowfall, we saw that Aunt Louie and Uncle Jerome, they wanted more. Because they were thinking like, yo, we're the ones doing a lot of this work here. We in the cookhouses. We in doing this. We putting the men on the street doing all this stuff. And it led to them being able to be manipulated to the point to where they go against the family. Jay, Jimmy, same sort of situation. And Solo, I believe in the future, same sort of situation. Roman has established himself as a head of the table, but at the same time, there's little things that's happening here and there. People saying things. People are doing things to manipulate them in a way to where it's like, well, nah, maybe we should be the head of the table. Maybe Solo should be the head of the table. Maybe Jay should be it's all these little tropes, these little things that if you're not watching, if you're not paying attention, you're not going to pick up on, which is something that I love in shows. I think sometimes shows are too predictable. And yes, things can be predictable, but sometimes there's a lot of foreshadowing that goes on if you pay attention and read between the lines of certain things, certain actions, certain facial expressions. And it was seen throughout the Bloodline. And so in terms of how Snowfall ended, we saw how that show ended, where Franklin is at that point, he's searching for hope that he can still be the man, because now his family is gone. His mother has no longer wants parts of him. He's gone to war with his family, Aunt Louie and Uncle Jerome. He's gone to war with them. Leon no longer wants parts in this, which I think in a lot of ways Leon is the Sami Zayn is the Sami Zayn character within this, because he had a realization and was like, well, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to leave. But what we saw with Franklin was after everything happened, he became desperate. And he became desperate to the point to where he was slipping. He made stupid mistakes. He made mistakes that he wasn't making earlier in the show. He was doing things in terms of being violent, showing the vicious side that he wasn't showing before. Yes, there were times where he would do that, but it wasn't at the same pace, the same level, the same energy and sort of fuck you attitude that he had towards the end of the show compared to... And this is, like I said, runs parallel with Roman Reigns, where I think as things play out more and more, we've seen the Usos kind of break away. And I think, like I said before, I think they're going to break away from the Bloodline sort of thing as a whole. But with Roman, he is going to become this person where now that his family leaves him, I think he's gonna feud with Solo. And at that point, he's going to be on his own. And when you become on your own, he's going to become a desperate man. So he's going to start making mistakes. We've already started to see them a little bit within the Bloodline and recently. But he's going to start making these mistakes where he's going to, I don't know, he's going to slip up and start doing things that would be out of his character in terms of his viciousness. Not necessarily him being... Let me rephrase what I'm going to say. Not even just in terms of his viciousness, but in the way he goes about it. From now, he's just going to start beating people just to be doing it. He's going to start antagonizing certain people for no reason, just to be doing it. It's going to be a different version of the tribal chief that we see now, because at that point, he's in survival mode. He's trying to save and make sure that his title stays with him to the point to where he gets to WrestleMania and loses the belt. And it's this crash, this fall from grace, like we saw with Franklin in Snowfall, where where in Snowfall, he wasn't able to get his money. His mother did what she did and killed Teddy. Aunt Louie went into hiding. Uncle Jerome went and died, got murdered. And Leon was kind of that only person left for him that was there with him. Even though Leon was still kind of doing his own thing, he was like, look, I can't get involved in what you got going on. I'm going to do my own thing. I'll help you with certain things. I'm going to do my own thing here. And we saw in time that Franklin, essentially, he started developing a drinking habit. And to a certain degree, he just became a drunk. He became a crackhead. He became someone who is a shell of himself. And not necessarily because he was stupid, but he was a shell of himself because we saw Franklin Saint as this dominant person in the game. He was in charge of everything. Everybody followed his orders. Everybody listened to him from day one. And he no longer has that. He no longer has that money. He no longer has that power. That is the same sort of thing that we're going to see with Roman, where he's going to have a fall from grace, where we're going to see a period of time after Cody beats him. We're not going to see Roman. He's not going to be there. He's going to go into exile, where he is out and You can't find him. You can't hear from him. You don't know what he's doing. And the thing about Franklin that was the most powerful part of the Snowfall finale, and this is why I'm going back and forth and trying to give you guys some comparisons here, is that at the end of the day, Franklin was happy. He lived the life that he wanted to live. He obtained the things that he wanted to obtain. But the true happiness, the true peace, the true energy that he was always looking for was freedom. And he wasn't able to get it financially, but mentally he was able to get that freedom and that love and that respect, if you will, from his peers to do the things that he wanted to do, making millions of dollars, businessman, all that. Roman is going to have a similar sort of parallel, because the one thing that turned Roman into this person was he wanted to be acknowledged. That's why he's constantly saying every week, acknowledge me. Because he wants to be acknowledged. Not necessarily acknowledged by his peers, because his peers, they already know what's up with Roman, man. They already know Roman is that guy. But I'm talking about being acknowledged by the fans and saying, look, guys, I've done it. Was at the highest of highs. And now I'm going to get back to the lowest of lows. And I'm going to work my way back up. And I'm no longer going to be this manipulative sort of figure. I'm no longer going to be this vindictive figure. I'm no longer going to be this power-hungry, arrogant dude that I was when I was with the Bloodline and I was at my best. No, I'm going to do this for you. I realized that with being within myself, I need to be able to get back to my roots. I need to get back to being happy, because as Roman goes through further in this story, he's no longer going to be happy, because he's lost his family, he's lost his title, he's lost his fans, and he's going to have to get something back to refill that happiness, to fill that void. And that is where the acknowledgement starts to come in. So that's what brings everything home. And that is why I think the show is so comparable. And I wanted to bring the story of the Bloodline to people, because like I said, although the show is going to be geared towards wrestling fans, there is a level of casual fan that I do want the show to be brought to, because I know a lot of people that's within my circle, the people that will listen to this, they're casual fans. So I want to piece that story piece by piece and let people understand why it is that everything happened and everything is kind of going and falling the way it is, and just within the characters and why it is that they are the way that they are. Because I do think that the Bloodline, this was one of the first stories in a very long time in professional wrestling where characters were established, but it wasn't like characters like, oh, well, this person, he's a loudmouth. It was characters of, we're going to learn each person individually and have a true understanding of what each person is motivated by. How, not only just how each person is motivated, but why they're doing the things that they're doing, why they're taking the actions they're taking, just outside of, oh, this person's trying to get a championship match, or oh, this dude interrupted my match last week, or oh, he said some bad things about me on the mic. No, it's deeper than that. It's further than that. And I'm excited and happy to see where things go with this story. I know there's people out there that complain, oh, the story is going too long. But once again, the story isn't about wrestling. It's about family. It's about power. It's about motivations. It's about characters. It's deeper than rap. It's deeper than wrestling, man. It's deeper than wrestling. And that's why I'm so adamant about it. And that's why it's something that got my energy back into wrestling again. That, along with AEW, which is what will be my topic next week for this show. Those are the things that really got me back into the wrestling space. Because this story is playing out like a show that I watch on TV, and I'd be a huge advocate and fan of. And I'm happy and I'm glad that the WWE decided to do a story like this, because for so long it's been stories where start and stop, or it's things that just didn't make sense, or stuff that was just stupid, honestly. Whereas this dude bumped into me in the catering, so I need to start a program. Like, No, that's dumb. That's really dumb. Sure, you can do that for a one-on match, but for a storyline, that's stupid. But this has depth, and I like to see depth in not only my television but in my wrestling. So, but yeah, so for all those that want to check out this story further and watch it, it's the video, the complete history of it. It's about an hour and 45 minutes long. Watch it in pieces if you like, but I highly recommend you all watching that video and really taking what I'm saying and what I said on this show and really listening and following it based on how I layered and structured everything out here. Because if you watch it based on that, I think you would enjoy it. You'd understand why it is I'm so high on it. But yeah, so that's been episode 1 of Brodcast Wrestling. And like I said, this is something I'm going to do week to week. It's going to be a different show. I'm not going to go show after show, match after match, and talk about everything. I want to talk about things that I like, talk about the things that I enjoy. And I want this to be like y'all coming along on my wrestling journey. Because for me, this is like a journey back into it. You know, I started going to indie shows, which is something I never did growing up, which are fun. I have a newfound fun for them, especially GCW and Deadlock Pro. Those are fun. But yeah, this is like me going along this journey even further, and I'm excited to go along this journey with you all and just see who gonna go on it with me, man. So yeah, this has been episode 1 of Brodcast Wrestling. Next week, I think I'll talk about AEW because I have a lot of thoughts on AEW. I'm not gonna go as long as I did on this one. I think this was probably the longest that I'll ever really go with these shows. I want to keep them about 30 to 45 minutes long, unless it's something that I'm passionate about like this. So yeah, so y'all be on the lookout. Typically, Brodcast Wrestling will be a Sunday show. This will be wrestling church for you, if you will. You can hear what's good. So yeah, y'all just be on the lookout every Sunday going forward after today. Be on the lookout for Brodcast Wrestling, man. I'm excited. I can't wait and hope you guys enjoy it too. So yeah, if y'all want to follow me, get to learn more about me outside of the wrestling stuff, follow at Brodcast Network, because this is a Brodcast Network production. That's BRODCAST Network. That's on Instagram, that's on Twitter, that's on TikTok as well. I do a lot of content on TikTok. Brodcast Wrestling, if you just want to focus on the wrestling content, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Brodcast PW. So that's BRODCAST PW on both Instagram and Twitter. I love to interact with you guys on the wrestling tip. Had it back and forth, man. Too many times in wrestling, people just want to say things and they don't want to have a real conversation about it and dare to be wrong about it. I know things are a pain in wrestling a lot of times, but hey, let's have a discourse. Let's have a conversation about it. And then if you want to follow me personally, man, you want to follow your boy Brody at Life is a Broadcast, spelled the same way as all the other broadcast platforms on Twitter and on Instagram. And I'll talk to y'all about anything, basketball, football, sports, shit that's funny, because I'm always trying to crack jokes. But yeah, that's where y'all can connect with me at. And yeah, Brodcast Wrestling, this should be fun. Y'all stay blessed, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.